What is up, guys? Bingo here. I'm with the Duel Factory for the 14th installment of X-2 Drop, a weekly Yu-Gi-Oh podcast we do, talking about the metagame, product releases, our thoughts on the current game, whatever we feel like talking about it, because it's our fucking podcast. And with that being said, national season is underway. A couple have already happened, but the U.S. Nationals hasn't. So we wanted to put a big emphasis on what to expect, and that's from the meta decks you'll run into, the side deck picks, and even stuff as simple as prepping for the event, getting registered, and just what to expect once you get there, because Nationals is completely different than a lot of other events out there. Now, I actually haven't been to one. I've had to work for the past 2 years on the Nationals weekend that I couldn't get out of. But, Joe's, how many have you been to?
I've been, let's see, my very first one I ever went to was in Nashville, Tennessee, then Pittsburgh, Chicago, and then Texas. So I've been to 4. This year will be my 5th.
Okay. And that was over the span of the past, 6 years, I'm guessing?
This the 5th, so this would be, over since I got back into the game in 2012. So over the span of 7 years.
Okay. So let's just start with the registration and prepping for the event, because it's a long event. You know, it's just like a YCS in terms of rounds of Swiss. It's 2 days, right?
Yeah. So it's a 2-day event, just like any other YCS. Usually day 1's 9 rounds, and then you'll have an additional 3 rounds afterwards, but it's all based off attendance.
Okay. And that starts Saturday, right?
Yeah, the event itself will start Saturday. Registration for the event will start Friday, the day before, at about, I like to say 2, usually. But it's actually really cool. So if you have your invite for Nats, it actually doesn't cost you anything to play. So that's one of the things to note. And then when you get there, when you register, they give you the sleeves, and they also give you the participation mat up there. So it's different from a YCS where, you pay your $20 and all that fun stuff, and unless it's a special YCS, you don't get any items. But Nationals is the exception, where you get a bunch of stuff just for showing up and entering. So that's one really cool part. You still have the option to turn your deck list in the day before, or you can do it the day of. But you have to make sure to get it in before you can actually play. But
okay, so you said you get items. I know it's been the elemental or the attribute dice for a few years. This year they're doing the spell and trap dice. What else do you get besides dice?
Like I said, so you used to not even get the dice. Like I said, it used to be you always get a participation mat. Last year's participation mat was
gorgeous gold sarcophagus mat.
No, that was the.
Oh, that was a
250th.
Yeah, that was 200.
Yeah, the 200th YCS. Last year's, I can't remember what it was. I'm trying to think back, because I remember the year that we went to Chicago, it was the spiral mat. And then the year after, I'm trying to remember what it was. I can't remember if it was well, going back that the year that I went to Tennessee, it was the Satellanite mat. And then the year we went to what was it? To Pittsburgh. What were the top decks? Because I know the top cut mat was the Master Pendulum, not Master Pendulum, but the Draco Pal mat was the top mat.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. But a lot of the mats you get are really cool, because they always have some sort of weird archetype, and then the archetype that was basically good for the year is basically the top cut mat.
Yeah, and I just want to say, don't give that stuff away. It does hold decent value over time. I know the Stellar Knight one is $100+. Don't just give away your sleeves and your dice, and hold on to it. I mean, if you don't like it, fine, whatever, but you can sell it.
Initially, yeah, it's not worth anything, but after a couple years, they're all worth a lot. One of my favorite mat that we got, one of the participation mats when we went to Chicago, I got the Mermaid mat. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuff, it holds value over time. It's just one of those things that because I know a lot of people, they just show up and they don't even play in the event. They just show up to pick up the mat, so they just get to hold on to it.
Yeah, and it's usually cool looking stuff. I really like the spell and trap dice. They look really nice. Okay,
yeah, so they recently started doing that When did we get the water dice? That was Chicago. That was during Zoo. That's when we got the water ones, and then the year after that, we got the Divine Dice, or the Millennium Item Dice, and now we're getting the Trapped and Spell Dice this year.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like registration and the items. What else?
You want to talk about how the actual gameplay is, or?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Is there anything you recommend preparing for? Obviously, don't forget your fucking cards.
Yeah, obviously, don't forget your cards. Testing the night before is really, really crucial. I'm not gonna lie to you on that one, because Nationals is completely different from YCS event. It's completely different from the regional event or anything like that. Because regional, you play in regionals all year round, trying to get your invite to go in the Nats and get practice and whatnot. But when you get to Nationals, it's one of those things that people are playing to actually have a chance to go to Worlds. And whoever you're testing with, or like your friends, like they might be your buddies then, but when it gets to the national scene and stuff like that, people get real stingy and they get real irritated real fast.
Yeah, and I just want to stress that this event, the caliber of play, like it might be roughly the same as YCS, but like most of the people there, like the whole season's been building up to this, right? So everyone that, maybe they didn't make it to YCS Knoxville, or maybe they don't feel like flying a 12-hour or driving 12 hours to go to the last YCS. All those people, all those good people that can top YCSs and consistently like top 8 regionals, like they're going to be there, and like they want to win, right? They want to get that top cut. And so everybody is like, I don't want to say rule sharking, but that does happen. But they're paying very close attention. There's no room for misplays. Like, you need to play test, like you were talking about.
Like I said, it's the biggest event of the year every year in North America. There, like, it doesn't change or anything like that. So when you're at that, when you get to that, when especially the amount of money and stuff like that people are putting in to get there, people, like I said, a lot of people are on edge, especially day one, the very early rounds, because everyone thinks that they have the chance, like, hey, I can go X1 today, I can go XO today, whatever. I'm going to go to Worlds. And then after later the rounds get, that's when you start seeing the frustration start popping up, because people start dropping the X2, some people start hitting the X3, and they're frustrated, and they'll visually and vocally point out their frustrations and stuff like that. It's not like any other event anyone's ever, like, that you're going to go to. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they're spending several $100s just to be at that event, right? And that's after the countless months of going to regionals and going to other high tier events where, this is why a lot of people play the game. Like, they want to do well on the, what are they, tier 3 event? Is that what they're classified as now?
Yeah, this is not considered a tier 3 event.
Okay, yeah, so this is what the buildup is for. So you need to make sure you play test like all week before, so that you're not going to do a sloppy misplay like chain Gazelle to Baylinks and then forget to dump with Gazelle, right? Like, your opponent's not going to let you do anything outside of what is exactly supposed to happen, right? You can't be like, exactly. Oh, I forgot to activate this. Can I do it now? No, it's like, no, you've already proceeded to the next action. Continue your play.
Yeah, it's the biggest stage of the year possible. So anything goes, honestly. And then people get like, you'll see a lot of things. Like, it used to be judges could verify, like, this is way back when I first went, and Mind Crush was a really popular card. Judges could verify what was in your hand so you didn't have to reveal it to your opponent and stuff like that. Like, you'll see a lot of stuff like that. People get real, like, tense. Like, people are really adamant about Final Cut and stuff like that. So just, like, the little minor nuances that you see at events that people don't really worry about, they really get brought to the head at these types of events.
Yeah, so, it's interesting you bring up Final Cut. Like, something as small as you not offering a cut to your opponent, and then let's say you resolve a danger and you draw, and they call it judge, like, that's a game loss for you.
Right? Another big one, you're absolutely correct on that one. Another big one is my buddy Blake used to do this, but deciding on high roll, low roll at the beginning of the match. So sometimes people just go ahead and roll dice on the assumption that it's going to be high roll or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So say I go up to, we're friendly and everything like that. We roll the dice. I roll like 7 and I roll 4, so I automatically assume that I get to decide if I get to go first or second, right?
Yeah.
Well, person across the table will be like, we never agreed on what we were going to do for the dice roll. And unfortunately, in that situation, that person is 100% in the right. Because it is the players do have to agree, even though a lot of people just assume that it's high roll. Both players have to agree on what the dice roll is, and people will do that at nationals. And they will call it, especially if they lose the dice roll, because something is minute as going first or second completely decides the entire spin of the game.
Yep,
100%. Especially when you're at that level. When, like I said, this is what everything's been boiling up to the entire year and entire season of Yu-Gi-Oh. So they're not gonna anything to get ahead. That's what's gonna happen.
Yep. And then you take what we just talked about and you get to the kind of the gray area or the shady stuff where, somebody, you could be winning the game and then you're excited, it's round 7, and you just make something really small, something stupid, or that it's not a big deal, but they can call a judge on you and it can lead to a warning or a game loss. And that's the kind of stuff people will be doing, because when it's round 7 or round 8 and he's X1, they're going to do anything within the realm of the rules or even sometimes outside to try to get that win.
This is how it is at the end of every year. But like I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Nationals is the funnest event I've ever gone to. Even the World's experience when I went down to Orlando back in 2016, just going to Nationals, it's so much fun. And then there's a lot of stuff you'll see. Like every year they have a special voice actor come, or a couple of them. Like last year, I think it was Yusei, and I can't think of the other guy. But they were the voice actors that came the year before that. So a lot of the times you'll see Pegasus there. Pegasus is cool. And
the theme duels they do with the voice actors. Like I think those were mostly Worlds, but I know it's just cool seeing.
They do them at Nationals every year.
Yeah, it's cool seeing those. Like I like looking those up on YouTube. They did Yugi and Kaiba, Pegasus versus Joey one year. I just think that's really cool. You get to see other stuff besides vendors. When you go to a regional, it's just you got your card vendors and your other players. Like you get to see the actual Yu-Gi-Oh community. They'll have like future product displays and like you just never really know what you can expect.
The one year that we went, they did it at Worlds too, but this was over in Texas last year. They had walls of complete sets of the more like last 10 Yu-Gi-Oh sets or something like that, where they just had walls full of the cards and stuff like that. That was really cool.
Okay. Didn't we get some, I don't think it was from Nats, I think it was from the 200. Didn't we get some spoilers from a display for a set coming out, because they had a couple of the cards out?
They'll sometimes do that where they they were not revealing, but where they had the case full of sets and stuff like that. One of them had one of the new sets up. I can't remember the name of the set, but they'll have like the complete new set of whatever's coming out all on the wall and displaying one big sheet of cards and stuff like that. And that was really cool.
Okay, so we talked about prepping for the event, getting registered, what you get from getting registered, what to expect from the gameplay mechanics. Now let's talk about deck choice and metagame calls, because this format, I feel like it's finally, there's not a lot of variance. Like 2 months ago, like it wasn't as decided, and Rogue had a better chance than I feel like it does now, because the top decks are so fine-tuned to the point where they can deal with any of the Rogue BS. So it's Orcus, Thunder Dragon, Salamangreat, and Sky Striker. And those are pretty much the best, like, the decks to beat, right?
That is the cream of the cream for our format.
Now, you can't ignore decks like Mystic Mine. You can't ignore decks like Altergeist, True Draco, and Guru Control. Those still exist, and they can do well. But when you sit down, you're especially after like round 3 or 4, you're probably going to be playing one of those 4 decks. So how do you prepare for a established format high tier event? How do you do it?
So one of the things, especially like when you go to an event, especially as one is Premier is Nationals, you have to think to yourself, so everyone around the world's traveling to this one spot to play, right?
Yes.
So no one's going to sit there and want to piss away money and for wanting to be a rogue warrior is the best way to put it. Like, don't get me wrong, every event's going to have them, and it's really cool to see that, is when you see, like, a rogue player do well at a very high-level event such as that. like a couple years back. I remember the Volcanic player that almost made it, or the Madolche player during a Dragon Ruler format. That was really cool.
Or like BA winning European Nationals. Like
exactly. But it's one of those things, like when you sit down and you're getting yourself prepared, is you have to narrow it down to what the best decks in the room are going to be. So as you were saying this year, it's going to be, I personally think the most powerful deck and the best deck, me personally, is going to be Thunder. So you're going to see Thunder, you're going to see Orcust, you're going to see Salamangreat, most likely Striker. Like you said, you can't ignore the Rogue element, but those are going to be the least likely that you're going to see sitting across from you at the table. Yeah. So when you look at that, you have to have your main deck geared for the biggest threats in the room. You have to think about what people can side against you, other vice versa, what can be sided against or what you can side against them, so on and so forth. And then instead of making your side deck so broad and have like such a bigger spectrum of things, a lot of times when players, especially myself included, we narrow it down to what we think is going to be the best 3 to 4 decks in the room because you only get 15 slots.
Yeah.
And you also have to find cards that overlap in those matchups. So like, for example, Lancey has a powerful hand trap against Thunder and Orcust. So that's three slots in your side deck that if you're going to side up to 3 cards, that hits 2 of those 4 decks already. And then you have other cards like Twin Twister, which is good at baiting out the back row disruption set up by Salamangreat, also by Orcust. So again, there's overlap there. So you have to find cards that are more generic than you would say, saying, oh, well, I'm siding, for example, one popular one. I'm going to play Vanity's Call against Goki because it's really broken against Goki. Which, don't get me wrong, that's great in theory and stuff like that, but it's only good against the one deck. You can't have that kind of luxury, especially at a high-level event like that.
Exactly. You want to have, I'd say, 5 to 6 cards, if possible, that have interactions with each deck in some way, shape, or form. I know that's not always going to be an option. Like Droll and Lockbird, right? This format is extremely good against Danger Thunder, but it isn't very good against the other 3. Like, it's okay against Striker, but you're not going to side that in against Salamangreat or Orcust, right?
Exactly.
So if you do make those calls, just know that the other 12 cards in your side deck, they better be perfectly catered and well thought out for the other decks, or else you are going to be in a position where you're sitting down against a Sky Striker player and be like, fuck, I have 15 cards for the other 3 decks in the format, but what do I do against Striker?
Right. It's it also depends on the season that you're playing in, too. Because the year that Zoo is the most popular deck, you can get away with most of that because almost every round you can guarantee yourself, hey, I'm going to play against Zoo.
Yep.
But this year you have 4 different potential decks you'd be playing against. So your mind has to be more open to the idea that you're going to play those 4 decks, but you're going to play a more diverse lineup versus past format. Especially like a really, really good example of it was a solid 2-deck format, which was 2013 Nationals, where you were either playing Spellbooks or you were playing Dragon Ruler.
I was just going to bring that up, yeah.
The elephant in the room was Evil Swarm. You knew it was there, but you weren't really worried about it because that's such a high-level event. No one wants to take a chance on being a rogue warrior. Now, there were a couple of Evil Swarm players that did well, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those 15 cards usually get dedicated to those 2 matchups, depending on what you're playing. So, obviously, your side deck's going to look different if you're playing Rulers, because there's certain cards that you side in the mirror that makes it better for your matchup, and then vice versa. Spellbooks are going to look different, and so on and so forth. But then go forward, and you look at 2014, where 2014 Hat was quote-unquote the best deck in the room, but you had to prepare. That format to me, that Nationals to me was different than any other, because you had to prepare for up to 10 different decks, right?
Yep.
So you have to have a lot of different cards that are good generically against so many different decks. And even then, the rogue decks that format were really, really good. So you just had to have nothing but generic cards that are good for any type of situation. And then so on and so forth as the years progressed, the number of deck selections went down. But this year, I think it's really good. I think it's really diversified because I can't remember the last time we went to a national season and there was just 4 solid defined decks.
Yeah. I don't know. 28. I don't even remember the 2018 Nationals format.
2018 was like Trickstar Sky Striker, and Goki. The other decks were just kind of irrelevant, honestly, because like Goki was, if they went first, they were just gonna bully you. Yep. Like that's just how it was.
Now, yeah, if you look at this format, versus last year and versus 2017, where it was Zoo, Draco Zoo, Kaiju Zoo, and nothing else. It was Zoo. That's all you had to. You prep for the mirror and a couple variants here and there, like play Kaijus for Masterpiece. But besides that, it was super. Like people were main decking outs, like Econ, Floodgate Trap Hole because of Zoo. You can't do that right now.
You'll see that a little bit, especially in the earlier rounds, because people are like so like worried about it. Where you'll see it most is people who don't have their invites and they're playing at LCQs. They'll just be main decking Floodgates because it's their last chance to get an invite.
Yeah.
But you'll have people. Here's a good example. But the year that we went to Texas, I remember sitting there playtesting with Aldo and Dom and the Blessing and all of them, and they were building their decks for the event, but they were building their decks to be well in Top Cut because they expected to do well at the event, which they should. Every event they go to, they always go deep in the event. They're always doing well, but they sacrifice their decks being not consistent. I shouldn't say consistent, but better in the earlier rounds, like rounds 1 through 7, 8, 9, whatever. But to build their deck to what they think is going to be the most represented in the Top Cut area. And they just do that type of deck building in this day. I mean, it worked out for my buddy Dom, who got second out of YCS.
You have to, because if you're building your deck to out the BS in rounds 1 through 5, you might make it to day 2. You might even make top 32. But the second you sit down in top 32, like you're just going to get destroyed. So I wanted to jump back to the Rogue. So when you're deck building and you're worried about Altergeist because there's an Altergeist player in your testing group and you have a really bad Altergeist matchup, just don't overthink things, right? Because when you got to remember, people are traveling so far. They're paying so much money to get there. They want to have the absolute best chance to do well in the event. So they're not going to spend 12 hours on the road to get a Rogue Warrior medal by making Top Cut with fucking sci frames, like whatever. So don't. I
know very few people who are willing to do that.
Yeah. So when you sit down and you're testing with your buddy because he is a Rogue Warrior, don't overthink things. Don't get inside your own head because like what was it? 2 events ago. You were so worried about Mystic Mine when you were building your side deck. It was like right after it came out. But that was a regional.
Yeah, that was the very first regional.
But it's the same mindset, right? Where you're just so focused on one bad matchup that you kind of shifted the way you were thinking. You eventually figured it out, but it kind of got inside your head. That's the kind of thing I want people to avoid.
That's the type of stuff that'll happen at nationals because people are prone to play. So people who where they have the mindset where they just want to top, right? The best example of this is when Monarch FTK was one of the big popular decks because it was so consistent. Okay, I mean, but you also had like cards like Chicken Game and all that fun shit at 3 and stuff like that, and that deck had like a 90% win rate or something like that, going first or second. So that deck was insane. But there are people who have that mindset that all they want to do is top the event, so they'll play degenerate stuff like that. But at the same time, like everyone knows the players who are really, really solid, the one who go to the event, they perform every single event they go to, no matter what. Like the Jesse Cottons and the Chase Furmans, the back in the day, the Patrick Hobans, those types of players, right?
Yeah.
They do well at every single event, and they always play the best deck, no matter what. Burn decks are never going to be in that category.
And they build it to win, and that's the thing. So going into this event, we already talked about what the best 4 decks are, but what are some power cards, or what are things you can expect to see, whether it's in the main deck or the side deck? And a couple of ones I want to just throw on the table: Super Poly, Phantasme, Mystic Mine, and you need to acknowledge all 3 of those cards exist.
Yeah, so there's been a popular trend where a lot of people, especially in the Orcus decks, because a lot of them are playing Terraforming to get to Light Stage because the Trickstar cards are so good in the Orcus deck. a lot of people are starting to side in Mystic Minds for when things go wrong going second.
Yep.
They have
just
access
blanks
to it.
the board. It's great.
Yeah, it just you get to play for free. And then since you're the one who controls the field spell, I mean, all you have to do is activate your own field spell on top of it, and then you can play again. So that's one card you have to be worried about. Another one that people have been playing a lot, but everyone's pretending that it's under the radar, or they're trying to keep it secret for nationals. And everyone knows that fucking Jesse Cotton and those guys have all started playing no material for the Orcus matchup. That it's not a big secret. They can pretend it is, but it's really not.
Yep.
Now, the other cards they play with it, that could be different. But
yeah,
that's one card.
If you are an Orcus player, you need to watch out for that, because if you're not, I mean, I don't really know how you can play around it. I haven't played Orcus. I'm sure there's a way, but if you get hit on your Nightmare game 2 and you're not prepared for it, you're probably dead.
Yeah, I promise you, anyone who's actually like good at the game or have put a lot of thought behind competitive play, the thought of that card stopping them has crossed their mind at some point. So you have to expect stuff like that. One card that I think is flying under the radar right now, but I've had it happen to me, and I know people are thinking about playing it because of what it can do, is Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. That card's flying under the radar because no one's been like playing it, but they're trying not to. But I know when I was playing Danger Thunder at the last event, and I was aware the card was being played, and I knew what was going to happen if I ran into it, I prepared for it. I didn't draw any of my outs to it. But when I got Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, that card's going to do one of two things. You're either going to push through it, and your opponent's going to be at damn near 35k life, and you're going to have to kill him through that, or it's going to end your turn because you can't do it.
Yeah, when you got 4 minutes left, or even 7 minutes left, that's 3 turns of interaction that you're going to have to play, and you just don't have enough time.
Exactly. That's just like an insurmountable pad of life to get past, no matter how big your board is. But at the same time, I see why some people don't play that card, because it's one of those things that only good going second. But I mean, when I played against a Sky Striker player and they did that to me, I had to pass my turn. There was only 6 minutes left in the round, and I had to pass. Yep. And it ended up winning him the game because I couldn't play through all the interruptions he put through.
I think that card is really good for getting you to top cut, right? Like that's the niche of that card. Is I think it's going to do very well if you're playing a very grindy deck and you're going to go close to time when game 3 starts consistently. That card will win you games. It's just after, like, if you do hit top cut, it's basically gonna be a non-factor most of the time. I mean, that's what I think.
I don't know about that one, especially like top, because to me the majority of top cut is going to be Thunder and Orcus, right?
Yeah,
that's right. That's what I personally think it's going to be.
I think you're absolutely right.
That one card against those two decks is insane, because the amount of summoning you do in one turn for each of those decks. Me and Micah were doing math the other day because I was doing Orcus combo with my deck, and he assumed that I was under Ghost Sister. He gained over 34,000 life when it was all said and done. And Thunder, everything you summon in Thunder is like almost 2,000 or more attack minus the Guard Dragon stuff. So you're obviously going to gain a shit ton of life.
Yeah, I mean that's still I haven't put that much thought into this card, but I guess if you did full combo and you still had all your big ass Trajans on the board, right? You got a full board that is right. You had 6 monsters, all 2,500 or more attack. It's still gonna take you 3 turns to kill them.
2 or 3 turns, yeah. Cause let's put the math out here. So we'll say it for Thunder. The usual ending board is the Seal, and you're gonna have. We're assuming you don't have the absolute gas in hand, so you're gonna end with a 2,900 Colossus, a 3,200 or 3,500 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, and whatever monster you're summoning for the rank 8. It could either be Zombie Stein or 38, but I don't think anyone's playing Zombie Stein anymore, so we'll say 38, right? So that's 3k, 32, 62 plus 29 is a bunch of damage. That should be 9,100, right?
91 is 3k plus 32 plus 29.
Yeah, so 9,100 points of attack power is the standard board for Thunder. So just assuming that we resolve the Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, we're going to say their life points is at 35,000, right? That's over. That's going to take 4 turns of direct attacks.
Yeah.
As if you don't have to push through anything.
And I mean, even if you can put, because I mean that's only 4 monsters on the field. Even if you can like put more on the field of 3K, that's still another 2 full turns of attacks. But we're actually over the time. I wasn't paying attention. This is a topic I do want to talk about some more. Maybe we'll do a bonus podcast or just continue it next week. But Joe, you got any closing comments about Nationals? We got a little bit of time.
The only thing I can really say about Nationals is don't let someone bully you into a situation. Just don't do it. Like if you're there, you're competing at a high level. You know the rules just as well as your opponent does. Don't let them put you in a bad situation.
Yeah. And I want to go on that. Don't be afraid to be stern, I guess. I don't want to say rude, but stick to the guns. You know the rules. Don't be a nice guy and lose a match. Like if you know something's not right, or if you know somebody like they did something that they're not supposed to, just don't let them do it. Call a judge, whatever you have to do. You are there to win, just like he is, and all is fair in this game as long as you're within the realm of the rules. So, with that being said, this has been X2 Drop episode 14. What to expect from Nationals 2019. Peace out.
Also, Douglas French has no sauce.
All right, later.
Okay, bye.